to Satsang. So beautiful to be together with you all. Let us take just a moment together and just allow yourself to fully arrive. Your body's here, but just take a moment and bring every aspect of your awareness that you're able to this moment right here. Bring your attention, your intention, your focus. Bring it all to this moment right here. Bring it to this breath, this very breath, in this very moment. Use that power of attention and intention to draw the awareness deep within. Amidst all of the sounds and sensations in the world around you. And amidst the constantly fluttering and flitting monkey mind in the brain within you, use that very specific power of attention to unhook your awareness from all of those things and draw it as deeply inside of you as you can. See if you can bring that sharp power of awareness to exactly the feeling of this very breath in this very moment. Let all else fade. And allow the awareness to be heightened on this very breath. Can you feel it flow into your body? Can you feel the subtleness of that prana, that sacred life force flowing gently in? Can you notice it even before it enters the nose? See how subtle your awareness can go. And just follow that breath as it flows in and flows out. You can add a very simple mantra to this. As you're watching the breath flow in, you can chant silently to yourself, so. And as you're watching the breath flow out, you can chant silently to yourself, hum. So, hum. It means I am that, or that I am. I am the universe. I am the creator. I am the creation. I am one with all. So as this sacred prana flows into you from this holy land, from across the tops of the Himalayas, flowing over and through the waters of Mother Ganga, and ultimately flowing into you. Just allow yourself to chant, so. And as you exhale back from the sacredness of your being, back into the universe, allow yourself to chant, hum. If the mind wanders, just gently bring it back. Slowly and gently, bring the palms of your hands together at chest level into Namaste, and just gently rub the palms of your hands against each other. And cup the palms of your hands over your closed eyes. slowly and gently lower the hands and open your eyes. Welcome again to Satsang. So as usual, we take a question that's come in advance to begin with, and then we'll open it up to any questions that anyone here might have. What is my connection to the world around me? So it depends on what level we're looking at. There's so many different levels of existence. Let's talk about just two, for the sake of being able to take other questions and the sake of being able to move into dinner for you all at some point, because the question, of course, is one that entire courses and books are done on. But for the moment, let's look at just two different levels of existence: the physical and the spiritual. And of course, we've got different levels of energetic existences and so much. But let's look at the individual story. This body, this story, this particular role, this karmic incarnation. And then let's look at spirit, soul. So, starting on the most subtle level of spirit, you're not separate from the world around you at all. There is no separation. The core fundamental teaching of the science of Vedanta is that there's nothing but God. There's a great myth that Sanatan Dharma, that the Hindu tradition is a polytheistic religion, that we believe in lots of different gods. And then people get over that myth and they realize, okay, we don't. But then some people say, well, it's not polytheistic, it's monotheistic. We believe in one God. But it actually isn't quite exactly that either, because it's not a sense of one God existing in one far-off place that you could give somehow GPS coordinates for it. It's here in this part of space or here in, The actual belief is that there's nothing but God. That everything is the divine. And so on that level, you are not separate at all from the world around you. It's different illusory forms, and we'll come back to the word illusion in a minute, but it's different illusory forms of the same content, the same essence. The idea that, for example, you've got all of these different vessels laid out, different cups, different bowls, different glasses, some of water, some of a lot of water, some of a little amount of water, some are tall and narrow, others are short and wide, some are clay, some are glass, some are translucent, some are transparent. Right now, each of those is going to reflect the sun in a different way, based on the size and the shape and the color of the vessel. based on the amount of water in the vessel. If all you're doing is looking down rather than up, it's going to look like you have as many suns as you have vessels. But actually, if you say, what's the connection between one sun to another? Well, they're not actually separate. There's only one sun to begin with. They're all simply different reflections of the same sun because they are in different vessels. Or we talk in Satsang a lot about the ocean and the different waves in the ocean. It's another metaphor. So on that level, your connection to the world around you essentially is, hi me, hi me, hi me. It's all self. Not my individual self, but as my awareness of who I am deepens and grows, and I let go of my identification as this vessel, then I start to realize I'm spirit, and then I start to see hi me, and hi me. Or I look in the mirror and I think, hi you. Right? That there is no separation. And then we have the level of form, which even though from the level of spirit we speak about as an illusion, it's not an illusion as in it's fake, or it's a lie, or your eyes are playing tricks on you. It's not like a mirage in the desert. It's not like one of those optical illusions, you stare at something for long enough and then it does something funny. It's not that type of illusion. It's an illusion meaning it's not the highest truth. It's an illusion meaning because our tools of perception are not good enough, it's what we see. So for example, a few hundred years ago, if on a science exam you had written that the earth was flat and that the sun revolved around it, you would have gotten an A. That was true at that time. Now, we now obviously know it's not true. But at that time, to say it's not true would have gotten you hanged or close to it. Because our tools got better, it's not that humans somehow became much more open and accepting and, ready to admit their possible mistakes. It's that our tools just got better. We developed better instruments that showed us, oh, wait, God, look at that. As our tools got better, the truth changed. Meaning, obviously, the earth didn't go from being flat to being round just because we got a telescope or a space shuttle, but our experience of the truth changed. Who knows? When our tools get better, our instruments get better, who knows? 200 years from now, they're going to look back and say, yeah, they thought the earth was round, and, they thought it revolved around the sun, and isn't that funny? We have no idea when our tools get better what we're going to come to know. And so when we look at ourselves, the tools that we have are our eyes that see form. They look at me and they say, oh, this is solid. Yeah. See right here, that's the boundary. That's where I end or where I begin. Either way. This is my boundary. This is me. All over. Me. But that's just because the tools that I use are not very good. use an electron microscope. Use the eyes that even different animals have that we've talked about recently. The way that a mosquito sees the world, the way a bee sees the world, the way different animals see the world, it changes. So our perception of the self is based on the tools we have. So when we talk about illusion, it doesn't mean this body is actually fake. What it means is that it's not the highest truth. But it's here. In this moment, it's certainly here. It's here as form, even though we now know from quantum physics that actually it's mostly energy and space. Nonetheless, it has the ability to perform like form. And in that case, what is our connection to the world as individuals? Well, our connection to the world as individuals is to see each other as sisters and brothers. To see each other as an inhabitant, even an individual separate inhabitant, of the same planet. In Sanskrit we say Vasudev Kutumbakam, which means the world is a family. But actually, on a more specific level, it's Vasundhara, which is the name for Mother Earth, that all is her family. That we are the family of the earth. And so our connection to the world from that level, from the physical level, is to realize that we each are here as different members of an earth family. The humans, the animals, the blades of grass, and the interconnection of that. And this is where some of those other layers that we won't go really into right now, but where they come into play, like layers of energy, quantum physics. It's not spirit, but it's also not form, that tells us, for example, how what I'm doing over here is impacting the world thousands of miles away. Call it string theory. Well, it's exactly what our sages and saints told us in the scriptures thousands of years ago, that we are all connected. And that our perception is actually creating the world. In Hindi, we say, Jaise Shrishti. No, Jaise Drishti Vaise Shrishti. As is the vision, so is the creation. Yatha pinde tatha brahmande. As is the individual, so is the cosmic. Now, quantum physics is telling us the same thing. In Newtonian physics, they spoke about waves and particles, mass and energy. Everything was one or the other. We had energy, we had matter. Then slowly, quantum physics started saying, well, actually, sometimes these things called waves act like these things called particles, and sometimes particles act like waves. So it's not quite so cut and dry if something is matter or energy. And then they came up with something I really love that they call the observer effect, which along with string theory is one of my favorite aspects of the very little that I know about quantum physics. Because what the observer effect says is, actually, whether it is a wave or a particle, whether it's matter or energy, depends on who's looking. Now think about that for a minute. How is it possible that I look at something and it's energy, it's a wave, and he looks at something And it's a particle, it's matter. Same thing. I'm looking at it through a thing, and I say, hey, Rohan, come over here, have a look at this thing. And it's totally different when he looks at it. Well, again, this is what our scriptures told us. As is your vision, so is the reality. So our connection to the world around us is not just the way we witness it or the way we love it or harm it. But it's actually, we are creating through our vision the very world around us. Which is really exciting and really beautiful and really powerful. Other questions? Yes. Right here, sweetie.
Thank you. Okay, how to put this? Maybe just to provide a little bit of context, as a social scientist who has two sides of the mind. So one side of me having all spiritual experiences and definitely knowing there is another reality and everything, what you say and what we feel and what we experience, that is what it is. And then this ego mind, or monkey mind, that always loves to drop the seed of doubt, asked me, okay, that's all good because we experience. But no one has really come down to say that reincarnation is real. Is this maybe mind fear of being burned or being in the grave and just wants to believe that he's going to come back?
Beautiful.
While, yeah.
Beautiful. Reincarnation. Reincarnation, the two sides of our mind. Spiritual side saying, yes, yes, it's true, and the scientist saying, well, but nobody's proved it. Now, the truth is actually, there's really quite a bit of proof. I should say there's quite a bit of evidence. Meaning, people will always say, oh, you can't actually prove it. Meaning, what we don't have, for example, is DNA. I mean, what are the things that the hardcore scientific world accepts as proof? Something that's tangible. So you would need to hand them DNA. Same DNA of somebody who died is in the DNA of me, but there's no blood relation, and it's a 100% match, not just a familial match. All right, well, that would be seen maybe as proof. But it's hard to imagine what other type of proof would be possible unless we somehow could put a microscopic video camera attached to someone's soul, not body, and it traveled with them after they died, and then we literally watched it come into a new body, right? I mean, beyond that, what would count as proof? We've already got from so many different cultures. Not even just the cultures that believe in reincarnation like India, but places like America. So much evidence of people remembering past lives, having access to information and facts that otherwise they would have no way of knowing. There's so many stories of children young children having information about a past birth, where they were, taking parents, taking others, taking researchers to see it, knowing in this almirah, my toy was there. I mean, there's so many stories. Recent stories that we've got documented evidence of. So if you're looking for evidence of it, there's lots of it. The dilemma is, and this is, I love the overlap between spirituality and science. It's a great overlap. But this is the one area where they really diverge, because science has said, here are the things that to us count as proof. And their scope is very narrow. Because there's a lot of things that you just can't prove in that scope. God, of course, is the biggest and most obvious one. But one of my favorite ones to challenge people who say things like, well, you can't prove God exists, is, can you prove love exists? Right? Hey, you love your mom? Love your wife? Love your husband? Love your child? Prove it. Show it to me. Prove it exists. What's it weigh? What's its volume? Put it in my hands. Take a picture of it. Everything that you would say proves love, none of it actually proves it. It could prove duty, it could prove responsibility, it could prove attachment, it could prove drama. I mean, you could play devil's advocate very successfully against every single thing anybody tried to show to prove that they actually loved someone. Because you can't prove it by those methods. Because it isn't tangible. It doesn't have a weight, it doesn't have a volume, it doesn't have a size, it doesn't have a color. You can't put it in someone's hands, you can't see it with a telescope or a microscope. But anybody who's ever loved knows it exists. And the fact that you can't prove it doesn't bother any of us, right? I mean, is anybody bothered by the fact that you can't prove that you love someone? Does that bother anybody? It shouldn't. Because love is something to be felt, not proven. I don't care that you don't believe that I love someone. It's irrelevant to me. I know I love them. I don't need you to believe that I love them. In the same way, I know God exists. I wish you believe God existed, because I believe that then you would be happier and more peaceful and have a richer and more meaningful life. And so I might try to give you different opportunities to experience the existence of God. But my inability to prove it to you doesn't disturb me. It doesn't take away my knowing that God exists. And reincarnation is really something that falls into a similar category. Except there's a lot more evidence for it. But if people don't believe it, that's all right. But what's important for you is not to allow yourself to lose something that deep within you, you know to be true from your own sense of knowing. Just because your rational mind says, well, you can't prove it. The very best, most powerful things in the world, God and love, can't be proven. Can you imagine if we held that standard and we said, well, forget it until you can prove love. I don't want anything to do with it. I mean, how we would suffer, how we would lose in our lives. Who knows, maybe someday our tools of sight will get good enough that we'll actually be able to see something beyond the physical. At the moment, we can't even see energy that we know exists. We know sound waves exist. We can measure them. With a machine, we can't see them. Our tools, no way. But we know it exists. We know so much exists that we can't see or hear or feel. Internet, right? I mean, take an example. How do you know it exists? Well, because my computer is able to connect to Wi-Fi. But I can't see it, I can't feel it, I can't hear it. My tools are not good enough. Maybe someday our tools, our personal tools as well as our tools of science will increase enough that we'll be able to say, there's God. Like we can look under an electron microscope and say, there's energy. Yeah, we're all energy. Wow, look at that. Maybe someday we'll have a tool that's good enough. But don't let yourself lose that which is powerful in life just because we haven't evolved good enough tools to, quote unquote, prove it to those who don't believe. Yeah. Other questions? Yes.
Pranam Mataji. Jai Ganga Maya. According to theory of karma, we are presently feeling or act according to our sanchit karma. At any past point of time, there is no good or bad sanchit karma. Now, in present, how can we try our yatra toward to reach that particular point? There is no karma, positive or negative, so we can get moksha.
So, in the theory of karma, there's three main types of karma we talk about. Prarabdha karma, sanchit karma, and kriyaman karma. We won't go into too much detail about them, but consider them long-term karma, as in stuff you did in a past life, seeds you planted in a past life that's bearing fruit in this life. Seeds you did planted in a past life or this life that will bear fruit in an upcoming life. Seeds you are planting now that are bearing fruit immediately. Cause and effect. I eat a sandwich. That's a karma. Karma is an action. I eat a sandwich. My stomach is full. Karma is over. I did an action. There was a result. Ate food, full stomach, end of karma. Unless, of course, the sandwich was not vegetarian, at which point you've got all sorts of other karma for the violence. But we won't go into that right now. I ate something, I have the immediate response, that's over. Then you have things that are more medium term. For example, you get up and you go to school every day. You study and you study and you study. Many years later, you actually get a job doing something that uses that which you learned in school, or at least uses the fact that you graduated and got a degree. You can think of that as short-term karma. So we have immediate karma, we have short-term karma. Then you have long-term karma. That's the stuff that goes across lifetimes. Now, he said, how do we get to a place where there's no more good karma or bad karma? So in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asks Krishna a very similar question. Because what Krishna speaks about in the Gita is how essentially everything we do is having consequences, either in this life, either immediate consequences, short-term consequences, or long-term consequences. But everything has reaction. Think about Newton's laws of physics. Same thing. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. It's not always as quick and obvious as I throw a boomerang comes back and hits me in the head. Sometimes it's that. I punch somebody, they punch me back. But a lot of times it's much longer and more subtle. But everything we do has a ripple impact both in the world as well as eventually an impact back on me. And so Arjuna says to him, well, then how can I be free? He begins by saying, I don't want to fight this war. Forget it, because I'm just going to get bad karma. This is a bad thing to do. I'm going to get bad karma. I don't want to have bad karma, so forget it. Not going to fight. And Bhagavan Krishna says, whatever you do, you will be accruing karma. You run away to the mountains, you leave your duty, you leave your dharma, you don't fulfill what you're supposed to do, well, you're going to accrue the karma for that. You fight the battle, there's karma. You don't fight the battle, there's karma. So Arjuna says, well, then what? Where's the way out? If good actions are going to give me good results, but I still have to come back next life to reap those results, to eat those sweet fruits. If bad actions are going to give me bad results, bitter fruit, and I'm going to have to come back next life again to have that, meaning whatever I do, good or bad, there's going to be a fruit salad for me to eat in my next life, one that's sweet or one that's bitter, but either way, I have to come back and eat it. What's the way out? If I don't want to come back, if I don't want to stay stuck in this cycle of birth and reincarnation, and I want to just merge with the divine, how do I do that? And this is where Bhagavan Krishna says, the only way is give up your sense of doership. Let go of the sense of I. As long as it's I am doing it, I am the doer of the actions, then I am the one who eats this fruit salad. But if I really allow myself to just surrender and just be a tool in God's hands, oh God, use me. Use me. You know what type of tool I am. You know what my abilities are. You know everything. Just use me. That's when we start to break free from the cycle. So it's all about surrender. It's all about letting go. It's all about, I was speaking in Arati tonight about offering. It's not offering as in, oh, aren't I a good offerer? Did you see what I did? Did you see I fed all those people? Did you see we gave all those people blankets? And no. It's an offering. It's an offering without an offerer. There's just offering. But I have unhooked my sense of identity from the one who is doing. And it's just happening through me. And that's the only way. Beautiful. Yes.
Hi, thank you very much. My question is, I've read and I've been like discovering a new way of praying, or there are people who say that we shouldn't pray asking, but just being thankful, because whenever you ask, you are in a state of lack. But here I've heard several times, ask and it will be given. So how should we pray?
Ah, great. Do we ask or do we not ask? If we ask, doesn't that mean we're in a state of lack? But if we don't ask, will it be given? There's a beautiful, beautiful story that Pujya Sadhviji told me. God, I had been here only a couple of months. Very, very beginning. And he told me a story of a king. Great king, wise king. A king from the olden days, where the kings used to go out on these big, long journeys to other kingdoms, to essentially conquer other kingdoms, to conquer foreign lands. And then they would come back bringing the riches of those lands they had conquered. And this was a king with many wives, as kings used to have in those days. And he had been out conquering other lands and was just about to come back. And he sent a message to all of his wives that he was coming back and what would they like. And all of his wives sent him lists. Bring me this, bring me that. Beautiful silks, gems, jewels, spices, this, that. And one queen sent back a piece of paper that just had the number 1 written on it. Now the king was a very good man, but he wasn't particularly sharp. And kings used to have very wise ministers with them. These days ministers refer to just like government officials. But in the old days, the ministers were these wise men, usually religious leaders, religious men, holy men, who were advisors, who literally would minister to the king. And so the king had a very wise minister who said, the king looks at this piece of paper with 1 and he says to his minister, 1? What does she mean by 1? Didn't she understand? Like everyone else followed the instructions. They gave me a list. This one, 1? What's wrong with her? And the minister said, oh, Your Majesty, she means you are number 1. All she wants is you. You are her number 1. That's all she wants. And the king was so touched. And his heart melted. And so he filled the lists for all the other queens, sent his men with the, packages to deliver all of what these other queens wanted. But he himself went to that queen. And of course, as Pujya Swamiji said, I can still hear him telling me the story. He says, and of course, wherever the king goes, everything goes with him. all of the chariots, all of the wealth, everything, naturally it goes with the king. The whole entourage, it goes with the king. And it's a story about prayer. It's a story about what do we pray for? Do we go to God with lists? I want this, I want that, please a nicer car, please a better job, please, a more attractive nose, please this, please that. Or do we go to God and say, I just want you. Be with me. Come to me. And of course, when God is with us, or we are with God, everything is there. And so, what do we pray for? Well, if the highest goal that you have is to have things, sure, God can give you things. Doesn't mean God always will, because, as I always say, God's not like Santa Claus, just there, filling your list. Ultimately, the universe is giving us A, what's a result of our karma, B, what we need, much more so than just what we want. But we've all certainly had experiences of praying for something and we get it. Oh God, please let this answer on the exam be right. I didn't study, but please, please, please let me pass so I don't get beaten. Please, please, please. Right? And then you pass. Oh, thank God. So we know that, God does fill the list sometimes. But the question is that really our highest goal? What do we want? What you pray for and how you pray should be determined by actually what you want. And if what you want is simply to be one with God, then pray for that. It's not a sense of lack. It's, God, I know you are there. Help me to know you. Help me to feel you. Help me to be with you. Or however that comes out for you, that's real for you. Oh God, remove from me all of that blocking me from you. Empty me. Empty me. So I can feel you. If that's what you want. And if what you want is things, pray for them. But yeah, it certainly comes from a place of not having, from an experience of lack. So the more you ask for, the more you're reminding yourself that you don't have. But I think it's actually even more detrimental than that. I don't think it's just a matter of psychological strategy of abundance. I think it's more a matter of, what is it I really want? Is it really I want abundant things and I just need to figure out the right way to do that? Is it by asking for them or by realizing I already have them? Or can we take this a step deeper and say, is what I really want a sense of fullness, a sense of wholeness, a sense of completeness that no volume of things is ever going to give me, no matter what I get? Because they don't have within them that which I'm looking for. One of my beautiful, favorite stories from the Ramayana, and I'll end with this, was after the big war of Lanka, where Hanumanji was the hero, of course. Sita Ma gives him this beautiful pearl necklace as a gift, and she says, "Now Hanuman, take very good care of this. It's a very precious necklace." And Hanumanji takes the mala, the necklace, and he looks at it, and he looks at it like this, and he looks at it like this, and he looks at it like this, and he looks at it like that, and he finally puts it in his mouth, and he bites the pearl in half. And again he looks at it, and then he spits it out on the ground. And then he goes to the next pearl. Looks this way, looks that way, bites it in half, looks again, spits it on the ground. And Sita Ma watches him do this, and finally she can't take it. She says, "Hanuman, what are you doing? I just told you this was a very precious necklace. You're biting it in half, you're spitting it on the ground. What are you doing?" And he says, "Well, Sita Ma, if it's precious, my Ram is going to be here." Means God, the divine, is going to be here. So I am looking for Ram, for God in each of these pearls. And when I don't see him in the pearl, I realize, well, this can't possibly be the pearl that's precious. And so I spit it on the ground. And I'm waiting to find the pearl that really is precious because my Ram is there, because God is there. And I love that story because it really just reminds us about what is it we're really looking for? What is it that's really precious? What is it we really want to be praying for? What is it that really gives us, not just from a theoretical level of some spiritual person said it, but from a very experiential, felt sense, knowing of the moments of my life that have been the most full, the most beautiful, the most enriched, the most exquisite? Are they moments full of things? Full of external opportunity and prosperity? No. I've never met a person who shared that the best moment of their life had anything to do with something they bought, some tangible item they were gifted or came to have, some degree or title or award or certificate or acknowledgement that they ever were given. They're always experiences of a deep connection to a fullness of the self, an expansiveness of the self. Whether it's a moment watching the sunset, the sunrise, the stars in the sky, seeing your brand new baby, falling in love, a blissful experience in meditation, in prayer, whatever it may be. There are moments in which our sense of self, of small self, expands. There are moments of experiencing God in our life. So ask for that. And ask unabashedly. Pujya Swamiji wrote, when he was very young, a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful poem song that sometimes when we're very lucky we can get him to sing, that says, "Main to kab se teri sharan mein hoon, mere aur to bhi dhyan de," which means, I've been waiting for you for so long. Please pay just a little bit of attention to me. It's a song for God. So ask. A mother loves her child, always. But she may not necessarily always intuit that what the child needs is to sit in the lap. But the kid comes up and crawls in mom's lap, and mom's right there, yeah, come. You would never say to a child, oh, don't, kids do this all the time, right? Pick me up, pick me up, pick me up. Now you loved them anyway. But when they reach up, say, what do? You pick them up. You give them a big hug. It's beautiful. Would you ever say to a child, don't do that? Wait till your parent picks you up automatically? Be grateful for all the times you were picked up in the past? No, you'd say, yeah, ask for it. It's your birthright. By all means, raise your hands and ask to be picked up all the time. Give your mom's back a break every once in a while, but, beyond that, yeah, ask for it. Beautiful. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening and night. And a beautiful morning. And so much love to you all.